Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be going over 3 things in this video, but just to compile it together, because they're really simple concepts. You probably saw from the thumbnail or the title, I'm clearly talking about consequent encroachment, quadrants, and mean threshold. Okay, first, let's explain them verbally so you can process it or register it in the back of your head what they truly are, and then so you can see them through an image through this chart here that I have on my screen. So, consequent encroachment would be the midpoint of a fair value gap. That's it. That's literally it. So if I draw a fib, let's say I'm drawing it from an imbalance here. Visualize that this is an imbalance. And I disable the other quadrants. This is the what? What would this be? If you said midpoint, you're correct. Or consequent encroachment of an imbalance. So the difference between mean threshold and consequent encroachment is the midpoint for imbalances, okay? That's what it is. It's the consequent encroachment for imbalances, like fair value gaps, inversion fair value gaps, Reaper fair value gaps, volume imbalances, implied fair value gaps, any sort of imbalance. That's what I'll be talking about. Okay. That's consequent encroachment. Whenever I mention consequent encroachment, or whenever anybody mentions consequent encroachment, just know that they're talking about the midpoint of an imbalance. It could be a fair value gap, Reaper fair value gap, or really anything that's, an imbalance that shows displacement. And then mean threshold is anything other than an imbalance, the midpoint of anything other than imbalance. So it could be an order block, right? So if I draw from here to here, boom, watch this, let's draw it out, right? This is the what? You said mean threshold, you're correct, because this is the midpoint of what? This order block. And is order block an imbalance? Is it an order block an imbalance? No, it isn't. An order block is not an imbalance. So what would we call this? We would call this the mean threshold. Okay? So anything, if you're drawing a range, right, from anything other than an imbalance, like a new week opening gap, an opening range from a certain time, this would we call it mean threshold, okay? But for imbalances, it's consequent encroachment. Now, quadrants. Quadrants, very, very simple, okay? Quadrants are very, very simple. So if we draw this again, and I go to my template, select quadrants, 2 more levels pop up. You have the upper quadrant and the lower quadrant. When you see price come to any of these levels in between the high and the low of the range that you're drawing from, and the gray lines are the high and the low. Okay, do you see this line down the middle? That's indicating the entire range that you've drawn. So the gray lines are the low and high of the range that you've drawn, and then these points here are points that the price can resist off of, or show some sort of willingness to go the opposite way off of. Okay, so this will be the upper quadrant above the midpoint, or above the consequent encroachment, or above the mean threshold, and this would be the lower quadrant below the below the consequent encroachment, and below the and below the mean threshold. Okay, below the consequent encroachment is what? Lower quadrant. Above the consequent encroachment is what? The upper quadrant. Very simple, right? Common sense. Easy, right? No catch here is like, oh, is there a catch? Is there like, can it be like, no, it's very simple. There's nothing around this, okay? Very, very simple. Now let's get into actually using these things. First, we're going to do quadrants right now. Let's have fun with quadrants. Quadrants, pretty fun to use. Let's use quadrants, okay? So, and with quadrants, you'd want to use them on big ranges, okay? So like, if abnormally big or abnormally large new week opening gap compared to others, or an abnormally large new day opening gap to others, or an abnormally large imbalance compared to others. So like something like this, or something like this. Not something like this, it's too small. Because look, if you draw it, it makes no sense. Would it? It really wouldn't make any sense. But something like this fair value gap here, yeah, that's reasonable. That's definitely reasonable, because look, it came to the upper quadrant and bounced off. See? Makes sense, right? But if it's too small of a fair value gap, it's like, why are we even using this type thing? So let's go to this gigantic fair value gap here, this gigantic bullish one. So if we zoom in, we throw our quadrants on here, we have the high of the range we've drawn and the low of the range we've drawn. And if we pull this out, let's disable the magnet for a little bit. because this will make my job easier to teach you guys. So here it is. We have the upper quadrant and the lower quadrant, okay? This is a bullish fair value gap, okay? So for imbalances, whenever you're drawing quadrants, right? For imbalances, right? If you're taking a bullish fair value gap higher, okay? You don't want it to see it get inversed. You're taking a bullish fair value gap higher. You don't want to see price push any lower than the consequent encroachment, okay? So since this is a bullish scenario, right? And you want to take longs on this fair value gap, you don't want to see price push below the consequent encroachment. You don't want to see that. If you start seeing that, that's not a good thing, okay? It's not like, oh, it's pushing below it, sell, sell, sell. No. Do not do that. Look, pay attention to price. Look for confluences. Look for PD arrays. Look for really is going on higher time frames and lower time frames. Whenever you see something happen like that, if you want to take buys at this fair value gap based off your confluences, and it starts pushing through the consequent encroachment, do not take it. That is a warning. Once it starts displacing through the consequent encroachment, do not take it, and that's in any scenario, bullish or bearish, or sales or longs, it doesn't matter, okay? But for this example, it was good. It worked out pretty well. Because if we look here, I'm sure if we drop on the 1 minute, there's a setup around these 3 candles. But if we look, we came straight to the what? The upper quadrant right here, the 0.25 level. Came straight to this level, came into it, bounced back up, closing above it. Came into it again, digging lower into the fair value gap, but did it push through the consequent encroachment? No, it didn't. So this is showing us that, yes, it wants to go higher, because the consequent encroachment, the reason why this is red, is, I guess you could say, it's the danger level or the warning level. If price pushes off of this, or pushes through it or pushes off of it, it can be a good and a bad thing. Pushing off of it is clearly the good thing, because it's bouncing off of the consequent encroachment. So the consequent encroachment can be a good and a bad level based off how price wants to use it or reacts off of it. So if it pushes through the consequent encroachment, no. If it pushes off of it, yes, it's a good thing. But as you see here, it came to the upper quadrant, and it doesn't have to come to the consequent encroachment. Remember that. Price doesn't have to come to the consequent encroachment of a fair value gap. It just came to the upper quadrant, did not push through the consequent encroachment, and continued higher into buy side liquidity here, this liquidity pool. Okay? Very, very simple, right? I say so. I say it's pretty simple. And you can also do this on inversion fair value gaps. If you're like, what? Yes, you can put this on inversions. It's like this here. This inversion right here. Boom. Price completely disrespected that. Now let's draw this out, shall we? Bow right there. Now pay attention. Oh, I didn't draw it all the way there. But pay attention to how the candles use the quadrants, okay? So we came up into the fair value gap. We pushed through the consequent encroachment. But what did we resist off of? What did we start coming off of? The upper quadrant. Yes. Yes, it started coming off the upper quadrant. So even if it does push through the consequent encroachment, you can still use the upper quadrant as a, okay, is it going to push through this? If it pushes through this, then this fair value gap is really over with type thing. So the consequent encroachment is like one warning. That's like, okay, wait. Let's wait a second here. Let's just calm down. But once you see it push through that upper quadrant too, it's like, okay, this fair value gap is a no-go. But we push through the consequent encroachment, come into this fair value gap that's within the upper quadrant, and finally does what? It rejects off. Simple, into this short-term low there. Easy, right? Real simple. Disrespected the consequent encroachment, came to the upper quadrant, and completely just dumped. Simple. Very, very simple. I personally think it's simple. Do you think it's simple? I think so. I don't know about y'all, but I think this is very, very simple. Let's do one more example of quadrants, because I don't want to make this video not too long. You get what I'm saying? I'm sure you got things you got to do. But, let's find a good fair value gap. Let's not take up too much time here. As I have people to teach, and that's you. Understood? I've got you people to teach, man. You people. Okay, that sounds a little racist, but still. That does sound a little racist. But with all seriousness, let's get into it. Find a fair value gap, guys. That actually worked. Bow. I think that's pretty. No, it's not. We have to drag it down here. Okay, here it is. So we pull this out. Bam. Look at that. We have the upper quadrant. We have the lower quadrant. Look at that. And let's zoom in. Look at that wick, man. Look at the bodies and look at the wick, man. I mean, yeah, what did it do? It disrespected the consequent encroachment, pushing through it. But look at that. It came straight to the lower quadrant. And let's look at that again. That looks so amazing. Do you see that wick? That's not there. Just by accident. Oh, it's buying pressure. No, do you see that? Do you see that? Amazing, isn't it? It comes right to the lower quadrant and does what? Pushes higher. Amazing, right? We're not even including any other confluences. Keep that in mind. You must use other confluences, okay? You can't just say, "Oh, fair value gap." You can't just do that. You don't. I'll be teaching you that later, but don't do that. I'll be teaching you concept and fusion later, but please, that's a warning now. Don't just do that, okay? But you see how price did not close past the quadrant, the lower quadrant? It's a good thing. Then see this? This wick here is also another indication. You have to pay attention to the wicks and the candle closures, okay? The bodies will tell you the story, okay? Pay attention to what the bodies do. Candle closures are a big, big thing. Very, very big thing. I'm telling you, candle closures are a very big thing. So now let's move on to consequent encroachment, okay? Consequent encroachment, easy. I'm going to keep this part real short, probably 3 minutes maximum, okay? If we do this, we got this BPR right here. Boom, BPR. All right, let's drag it out. Bam. All right. So what do we do? Well, what's going on here, y'all? What's going on here? So if we zoom in, price came to what? Price came to the consequent encroachment and immediately what? Immediately dumped. Simple, right? But let's really look at this candle, okay? Now we came to what? The lower quadrant and the consequent encroachment. Did we push through the consequent encroachment? No. Is that a good thing? I'll let you answer that. Is that a good thing? Yes, it is a good thing. If you said yes, you're correct. It did not push through this. So we could take sales off this BPR. If you don't know what a BPR is, I'll be putting a video card in the top right so you can go watch my old video. 2 years ago, I do sound like a squeaker back in that video, so please do not clown on me for that. I was like 11 years old when I made that, but still, it's still good knowledge, so go watch that video. But seriously, we came to the consequent encroachment, rejected off of it. We didn't push higher. And look, we came to the upper quadrant, well, not upper, but the lower quadrant. And what do? We closed right below it. See that? We came into the consequent encroachment and lower quadrant and closed right below them precisely. See that? And that's an indication that price is going to what? Price is going to dump. And it did just that. If you wanted to take this change of state of delivery here with this order block and fair value gap, if you watch the change of state of delivery video, which has recently been skyrocketing in views for some reason. But if we mark this up, this could have provided you, I think, a pretty good RR. Probably like a 1 or so. But even if, that's still a trade. It doesn't matter. A trade is a trade at the end of the day. Did it work? Yes, it did. Was everything in your favor? Yes. Did you use the confluences correctly? Yes. Did you use consequent encroachment correctly? Yes. So, this isn't a terrible trade. You made money. You're good. Okay? It's not like you didn't follow your plan. Oh, it has to be above 2 RR. That's not true, man. Don't base your trades off RR, please. I might be yapping within this video, but still, all this yapping is good knowledge, okay? Don't base your stuff off RR. Don't do that. Just don't. Now, at least have your RR above 1, okay? Have it above 1. But don't sit there and be like, oh, the trade has to be above 2 or 3 for it to be a successful trade. No, man. I've taken 1 RR trades before, like 1.5 RR, and they went perfectly fine. Stop loss may have been just a little big, or just take profit was small and the stop loss was small. But still, it's a good trade. What did you do? Use the consequent encroachment and did pretty well. Simple, right? Now, enough of me yapping. Let's move on to mean thresholds now. Let's actually move on to mean thresholds, okay? So, we draw from this order block here, from the low of the order block, which will be down here, all the way to the high of the order block. Bam. We draw that out like so. Boom. Okay? Now, you may be like, okay, it did close above the consequent encroachment here, as you see. But, remember, like I told you, we're not just using fair value gaps, or consequent encroachment, or mean thresholds. In this case, this will be mean threshold because it's not a what. I said it earlier. If you are watching and listening, and not just playing this in the background and actually listening, a mean threshold is something other than a what, is the midpoint other than a what. If you said mean threshold, you are correct. That's exactly what it is. Okay? We're not even using other confluences, okay? We're not. So, understand that. We came to the consequent encroachment, okay? Closed below it on the first candle. Came up into it again, closed above it. But did we dig past that upper quadrant? No, we didn't. And remember, you only want to use quadrants on decently sized ranges. So you see how this is a decently sized order block here? Came to the consequent encroachment, rejected off of it, had to change the state of delivery, rejected off again. Okay? They have to be decently large to where they're not like super small like this. Okay? Like let's try to make an example. They can't like be stupid, like a stupidly small for value like that. Like come on, come on, man, really. Like this, I'm sure this makes sense to you, but like, why would you do that? I don't think you want to take yourself to that. To have a stupidly small variety, like, oh, it's gonna touch the upper quadrant and then it's gonna go up. No, man, don't do that. You don't need to do all that, man. Like really, you really don't. I'm sorry for yapping, but I'm just trying to condition you to not do stupid things. Okay, I'm trying to give you all the knowledge that I can give to you. Okay, so don't not appreciate what I'm giving to you, because I think you really should appreciate it, because most people don't do this, even at this young of an age. Some people don't even know how young I am. Some people think I'm like 16, 18. It's hilarious. If you join the Discord server, you would see that. But we came to the mean threshold. First candle that came to it, closed below it. Second candle came up into it, closed above it, but we came straight back down. Okay, you see that little wick there? How we came down? See that? And another indication is, even if it closes above the mean threshold or the consequent encroachment, did it push through the other quadrant? No, it didn't. It didn't push through it. So this is okay. And plus, we're not even using other confluences, okay? So remember, like I said, you don't just use strictly this. But if you want to use strictly this, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Because I'm teaching you how to use it by itself. Because you can. You can. But you just have to use these rules to make sure the fair value gap doesn't get violated, okay? But let's do one more mean threshold example, and then I'm going to end this here because I do not want to make this too long. Let's find some sort of a order block or something. Yeah, let's do this order block right here. It's a pretty large order block. But from here to here is your order block. We draw that out, man. About here. Bam. Cool, right? Alrighty, let's look at this. Let's look at the anatomy of this range here. So, as we can clearly see, we came into what two levels here? We came into the upper quadrant, and we came into the mean threshold. Simple, right? Now, what did we do at these levels? We came to them, but what did we do? At the consequent encroachment, every time price came into it, we did what? We closed above it. Came into it again, closed above it. Showing willingness to go what? Higher, or the opposite way. And did it do that? Yes, it did. It did. And it even went higher than that. Easy. Very, very easy, right? And then look at the upper quadrant. Did it try to it did push past it, but did it at least come to it? Because remember, the bodies tell the story, but the wicks just do the damage. The bodies tell the story. It's all about the bodies now. Okay? We started resting right at the upper quadrant. We didn't even dig that low. We digged lower with the wicks coming into the consequent encroachment. Then the bodies came right back up and closed, resting right next to the upper quadrant. Like I said, even if it digs a little lower before beyond the mean threshold, I keep saying consequent encroachment, but it's mean threshold. Anything other than an imbalance is mean threshold. That's my fault. So don't say consequent encroachment for anything other than an imbalance. Okay, so this would be a mean threshold of an order block. If we see price push past the mean threshold, look at the other quadrant. Does it push you that? If it doesn't, then you're good. But also keep waiting and use other confluences to make sure something drastic won't happen. Okay? Now, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to keep this unedited too. I'm not even going to edit this. This is just going to just going to throw my intro on there, throw it in the fade out, and then just throw it on YouTube because this is good info. I'm not going to cut out, normally I cut out all the parts where I yap, but I'll keep this in here because this is very good information about fair value gaps in general. But I hope I gave you a pretty good explanation of quadrants, consequent encroachment, and mean threshold. Hopefully you can remember them, go in your charts, backtest them, use them, and master them, and be able to make profitable trades with them. But I'll be headed out now. I have other videos to record. I got other things to do. I got school, and I'm sure you have work to do. I'll be headed out now. I'll see you guys later. Peace.